Yeah, the crowd goes wild. Good afternoon. I appreciate the fact that the Senate is here. We do this every year, just so you know, because it's part of our annual planning calendar. We want to make sure that every year we had an opportunity to communicate with students about at least some of the big picture items that are happening at the college, so that you know what's going on. And we did that because as we went through our strategic planning process, students said we need to make sure that there's opportunities for students to be more informed about what's happening at the college. And so we've done this each year at a student senate meeting because we know we get you guys to come. Unfortunately, we don't get many others, but it is being streamed live today, so there may be some other students who will chime in. And so if I haven't met you, my name is Bill Seymour, president of the college. Very proud to be your president. Just finishing up my 5th year here at Cleveland State. So I can't imagine being anywhere else because this is a great place. We've got a lot going on. And we're going to tell you about some of that today. So the presentation I have here today, I'll try not to keep it too long, but I kind of stole it, frankly, from 2 other presentations that I've done recently that speak on kind of similar issues and topics. One was a presentation that we did to all of our faculty and staff not too long ago to kind of talk about the progress that the college made the previous year and also what were the big goals coming up for this year. So that'll be included in here. Also, we hosted a meeting of the Tennessee Board of Regents on campus this summer, and we also gave them a presentation about Cleveland State and what's going on, and I stole some data points from that I think you'll find interesting. So this is a pretty small group, and if you have a question as we go along, don't hesitate to throw up a hand and say, hey, I've got a question. I'll be happy to try to respond to you on that. So it's all up there, and I might have to turn around a couple times. So institutional emphases, those are the top goals that we have each year. All of our faculty and staff go through a strategic planning process every year, and they do a set of goals for themselves individually, for their programs, for the departments, for the divisions of the college, and then everything kind of comes together and we pick what are the top goals for the college, just so we can keep an extra special view on those goals. So this is really for the past year, but I want to give you an idea about some of the things that we accomplished. A lot of writing there, but complete approval for capital maintenance projects. There's 2 kinds of money we get from the state. There's capital maintenance, and those are really for replacing roofs and fixing parking lots and taking care of a boiler, all those things you have to do to kind of keep the facilities running. And so we did classroom renovation in August 2017. A lot of the classrooms that you use have new furniture, smart boards, and things of that nature. We certainly like to do more. We have developed a plan for a new entrance to the college. That has not started yet. It's being bid right now. And that would give a new look to the front of campus, entrance into that parking lot in front of Atkinson Hall, and also a new plaza we developed out there so that it's much more appealing as kind of the first place that people come to. In progress with the city developed a roundabout at the intersection. Now this probably won't happen until about the time we complete the new building, which we'll talk about in a minute, so that when that new building's done, they're going to redo North Chapel Road coming underneath 75, and then they're going to redo Atkinson Road. It'll have a turn lane and sidewalks all the way up and down, and then a roundabout there. So this is kind of planning for the future. And also complete the underground utility project. That's not very exciting. You don't really get to see the advances, but we need to make sure that our underground utilities and technology are up to date, and that was accomplished last year as well. Secure state funding for capital outlay. So I'm actually getting into some of the other points, but we were approved by Governor Hassan and our state legislature for $25 million in capital outlay, it's called. So capital outlay is for new buildings or major renovations. We're the only community college in the state that was funded for capital outlay really in this fiscal year of 2019, 18 and 19. And so that is going to be used to do 2 things. One, $20 million is going to go towards the development of the first new classroom on our campus since 1974. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And also, $5 million will be used to renovate the humanities building. I think everybody has classes in there at one time or another. So that'll begin a process of renovating all the buildings on campus, which really need to be done. It's a pretty campus, I think we all agree, but our facilities are behind, and we want to make sure that they're in great shape so they can last another 50 years. Then complete initial planning for approved capital outlay. Now that we've got the money for the project, we have to do all of the planning to make sure that that building happens. So we have completed the programming aspect of that process where we meet with faculty, we talk about what do you need, how many classrooms, how many seats in each classroom, what needs to go next to each other, and that has been completed. Now that information is being turned over to other architects. We'll actually start the design process, and we'll start to see some floor plans. We'll start seeing some renderings of the outside of the building, and you go through a process where they come back and say, okay, here's the first draft. What do you think? And we talk with the faculty and staff who have to use it every day, and they tell us, no, this needs to change, we'll make some modifications. And you go through that process probably at least 3 times, maybe 4 times, to the point where those plans are correct. And then those plans are turned over, and they bid out the construction phase of this. And so the design work will happen between now and probably January, February. And then once the designs are done, that gets turned over, and they bid out the construction. And they go through that process, and we'll probably see them breaking ground June or July next summer. So it takes a lot of work and time to get to that point, but it's pretty exciting that we're going to have a new building on campus. So we're getting all that work done. Okay, so another area is complete the Community First campaign. So to get that $25 million, we had to do a match campaign. Minimally, we had to raise $2.5 million. We have never done a capital campaign before. We've never done a campaign to raise anything of that size. For some colleges, that might seem like a pretty small number. For us, it's a huge number. And so we exceeded our goal. We raised over $3 million to go towards that campaign. So we met our match, and we have other money that we can put towards capital projects as needed. So that was a pretty exciting thing for us to complete that. I think a lot of folks were thinking back in January, they're not going to raise that kind of money. In fact, we'd hired a consultant who was supposed to help us do it, and they didn't believe we could do it. And they thought the best you could raise is about $500,000. So pretty proud of the fact that we raised $3 million. And that picture there is just a very, very preliminary drawing. So if you were standing in the middle of I-75 southbound looking towards campus, you might see that building first and then the other buildings behind it. It's just a very preliminary. We still haven't totally decided exactly where on that side would go. So over here, here's Atkinson Hall. Here's the new building, but it could be here, it could slide over this way, but we're going to be using this parking lot. I think we would like to use it down this corner so we can minimize the loss of parking. Just so you know, we have purchased this lot right here. And pretty soon that house will be torn down, and that'll be additional parking just to help deal with the impact of the new building going up. All right, another major goal last year was to prepare for the CSCC 5th year review. We are responsible as our regional accreditation agencies, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, the Commission on Colleges. That's what all those letters are about. And we have to do a full review of our accreditation every 10 years to be reaffirmed as an accredited college in the Southeast. Every 5 years, you do a report that's not the total thing, but still very important, a lot of work. So we've got a team of folks who are assigned to that. The team's in place. They've got a good plan with timelines. We have to turn in our report during the fall of 2019, and then during December of 19, SACS will make their final decision, and we move on. But we don't expect any hiccups because we've been doing a pretty good job of planning. Another initiative was recruitment initiatives, all kinds of things in here. Implement enrollment services reorganization. Dr. Stokes and others did a great job of putting the right people in the right places and reorganizing some processes to make sure that that office is as effective and efficient as possible. So we completed that. Prepare for Reconnect. Obviously, anybody here on Reconnect? Most of you probably busy promise, but as you know, we started Reconnect this fall. The first time that adults had a chance to have the same promise as high school graduates. And there's a lot of work to get ready for that, and obviously that's worked out pretty well. I'll tell you more about that. We implemented our Veteran Reconnect grant that is allowing us to advance our work and support with veterans. Many of you might have met Shauna, and she's awesome, and she's doing lots of things to make sure that veterans get that prior learning credit to go along with what they learned in the military and other places. So we're very happy to be one of the few schools that received that grant. Consider adding a weekend college. We have done that. It's a small start. I think we have 5 programs where students can take those on a weekend only to complete their programs, but we're hoping to add that in the future. This was part of our overall planning in terms of class schedules, cohorts, learning communities, and that kind of thing. revitalized the summer school for 2018, and our faculty did an amazing job planning for that. We increased our enrollment by 36% this past summer. And here's kind of the short story of what happened. It used to be that the courses that were offered in the summer were based upon the faculty said, yes, I'd like to teach summer school. Now it's based upon what courses do students need to complete their program. Sound like a better idea? Well, that's what happened, and that's what occurred. Now, about half of that is related to a new summer cohort of nursing that happened as well. So even in addition to that, we grew quite a bit. So that's a good opportunity for students who can take courses to make sure that they're moving towards their completion. Market the Mechatronics Institute and select the first cohort. We had a grand opening at the beginning of the semester. This is a group of students that were selected out of high schools who are interested in career and technical areas, but also engineering. And we have a group of local manufacturers or regional manufacturers who committed to this. And the idea is that they're selecting students that when they come to Cleveland State, they're also being hired by the company. They basically did what I would call an NFL draft for them to pick the students that they wanted in there. And so these students go to class 2 days a week in a cohort of mechatronics. They go to work at their plant 3 days a week, and they're getting paid about $14.50 an hour. So imagine coming to school on Tennessee Promise and getting paid to go to school and get that real-life experience. So we're really hoping to see that ramp up quite a bit this year. So that is complete, but we definitely want to grow it, develop plans to more effectively market for recruitment. The Communications Office has worked very closely this past year with the Enrollment Services Office, and they really have done one of the best jobs I've seen at really communicating for recruitment to make sure that people out in our region, high schools, adults, and all others, know about what's going on at Cleveland State. So they've done a really good job, but we've got to keep that up. Another area is student engagement. That sounds like a buzzword in lots of ways, but it's really important to us. We implemented last year, a year ago in the fall, what we call 30-day plans. I challenged all the faculty and staff to develop a 30-day plan where they individually would really look at how can I better connect with students, better serve them, help the start of the school year, get off to a great start, and each faculty and staff member wrote that plan. You know, we've talked a lot about mindset, so I wanted to make sure the faculty and staff developed a mindset for how do we engage students from the very beginning of the fall semester and provide the kind of support and assistance that they need to be successful, because those first 30 or 60 days are crucial, because if students can survive that and do well, their likelihood of retaining and completing not only their first semester but graduating is much higher. So we put a lot of emphasis into that. You probably don't know about it, but this is what they did to kind of make sure they could serve you better. So along with that, incorporating the mindset concept, if you're in FYS, you probably talked about mindsets. I hope that you did. I used the opportunity of our convocation to talk about mindsets. It's the idea that if students understand and come to believe that they have all kinds of potential, they can learn, they can grow, is really a powerful thing, because the truth is that there are students who don't have that mindset. And if we can impact them, they'll be much more successful. Develop a new student organizations and academic completions. In our strategic plan, we talk about growing the number of student organizations, but more specifically, how can we develop more programs that offer competitions, particularly in academic areas. So we have started Skills USA, which has been very popular in high schools, colleges of applied technology, but because of our growing programs in advanced technologies and other programs, we wanted to grow those programs. So this provides students an opportunity to be very creative and develop things and compete on a regional and national level with the things that they might actually design and build. And we also started a chapter of FFA, Future Farmers of America. We're trying to grow our agriculture program. We anchor that in our Athens campus. So there's a couple examples, but we certainly want to add more student organizations, particularly those that have different kinds of competition. Any of you do the debate team? I went to the meet that they held here recently and got to see their competition for the first time. It really was amazing, and to see what these students do and how they communicate and plan and do that kind of thing. But the competition is a way to engage in your academic programs in some different kinds of ways. Develop, significant increases in lots of letters. First one is the Community College Survey of Student Engagement. the second one is this survey of entering student engagement. These both come from a company that's based out of University of Texas. These are national surveys that thousands of colleges, or at least hundreds of colleges across the country, participate in every year. They give us a good sense of the extent to which U.S. students are engaging in the life of the college in many, many different ways. I've got a slide here I'll show you later, but we're really proud of the fact that we have moved that needle in some very positive directions. The other thing is that these scores impact the performance funding that we get from the state. All the money that comes from the state to Cleveland State is based upon our performance outcomes, and student engagement is one of those. So again, I'll show you more about that in a minute. Bring our pathways to scale. Many of you have heard the term pathways being used quite a bit, but this has been a very intentional thing on part of the college. We were one of 30 colleges across the country that participated in a Bill and Melinda Gates funded Pathways project that was organized by the American Association of Community Colleges. So we were picked because they knew we had great potential, and we have used that potential to really move us further along in terms of how we engage you as students. And I could give a whole presentation on that. I won't today, but probably the best way I can explain it is that not too many years ago, just a few years ago, I would describe Cleveland State as a college that was teaching what it wanted to teach when it wanted to teach it. With a new mindset, we're teaching what students need when you need it. And so again, many different changes have happened, from intake of college students to advising kind of programs, to how we do FYS, to how we engage you in learning communities. All those things are part of our Pathways work. So a lot of work has gone into that, including our new class schedule. That wasn't just a decision to say, hey, let's change from 5 days to 4 days and give people a day off. That was not it. It was very strategic to go to a schedule that was more focused on blocks and cohorts so that students could engage more with the students and engage more with faculty and connect that with your academic programs. That's the theory. We're going to assess the heck out of this to kind of get your feedback, and Student Senate can be very helpful in that. But there's some really important, strong theory behind this to make sure that you're engaging academically and co-curricularly, that's probably not a word, as much as possible. So inside and outside the classroom. So that was all part of that. And we're going to go beyond that even this next year. I threw this slide in when I was talking with the faculty and staff. When I got here, Cleveland State had been deficit spending for 4 years in a row. You wonder, how can you do that? Well, the only way they got away with it is that we had reserves for the college. So if we don't spend all of our money, it goes into reserves. Well, because of that deficit spending, they cut the reserves in half. So when I got here and working with our vice presidents and others, we knew that we had to stop that, number one, and correct it so we could develop a stronger economy for the college. Because I think you all understand, even though our mission is to make sure you're getting a great education, we can't do that unless we're running a good business for the college. That's what I spend a lot of time with, is what a lot of our vice presidents and others deal a lot of time with. But if we're not running a good business, we can't effectively support you in your learning. So we're paying particular attention to this. So first step was to balance our budget and add to reserves. Well, we balanced the budget for 4 years in a row now, and last year we did add about $200,000 to our reserves to start that process. So we've made that happen. The second step was to make gains on our performance outcomes. I told you that performance outcomes dictate all the money that we get from the state. And so that tends to be up and down, but we've had a record number of graduates. Our key performance indicators and our student engagement scores are going up. And right now, this afternoon, the Tennessee Higher Education Commission is meeting, and they're dealing with all kinds of topics related to funding for next year. And the proposals that we saw, with all things kind of staying the same, we're going to be in the top 3 of the 13 community colleges in terms of the additional money that we're getting because of our performance outcomes. And so, again, really important to impacting our economy. Achieve enrollment growth. That's tough in an economy that is very strong, and nationally the trend is for enrollments to decrease in community colleges across the country. They certainly have been in the state of Tennessee. Not drastically, but just a slow decline. And most of that is due to the decreasing number of adult students. And adult students are even more impacted when the economy is strong. There's jobs, they want to keep their jobs. And when the economy is bad, like back in 2009 and 10, after the Great Recession, or whatever they called it, our enrollment went up. And so we're bucking the trend by having an 8.6% increase in enrollment this past year for this semester. We were number one in the state of Tennessee, both in terms of head count as well as FTE, which is full-time equivalency, which really relates more to revenue for the college. So we think we're on the right track. We want to keep that going for multiple years. And then also achieve fundraising goals. Well, we've been doing pretty good in terms of what we used to regard as our foundation and money for scholarships, but also to raise $3 million plus for our capital campaign was part of that. And then expand and add academic programs is one that we're working on right now. We have a group of faculty that are working together to look at what are the next things that we want to attack to either grow a program or add programs. So to reach our enrollment goals, we know we have to do better on recruitment, we have to do better on retention, and we have to add new programs. And the purpose is not to be the largest community college around. That's not anybody's goal. But we want to create an economy of scale such that we can have funds on an annual basis to put towards our priorities, which chiefly are students. So again, there has to be a strong business behind a good college. So we're making good progress on that. All right, composite financial index. If you take all of the measures that relate to the financial health of the college, we're seeing some good change here. So actually in 2016, that was a slightly negative number right there. It's hard to see. For 2017, we jumped up to about 1, little less than 2 on the scale. So 0 or below is bad. Actually, anything below 1 is bad. And then this year, even though we're waiting on the final number, we're going to be about 2.5, and 3 is considered like tops. So it's not like we become the richest school in the world, but how we run the business of the college and funds that we have available based upon the size of the school, there's all kinds of calculations to that. We really have improved it quite a bit. So that may be more than you want to know, but I guess I'm trying to make the point that we recognize in terms of the administration of the college that we do have to make sure that we're running the college in a very sound, effective way so that we can put the resources towards your education. And we're trying to do that as best we can. All right, let me turn the tide. So these are some major goals from this year, and I'm hurting my neck, so I'm going to stand right here, and the camera might, this is being done live, but I'll go through these fairly quickly because these are the goals for this year. I mentioned some of them already. Develop a plan to improve adjunct recruitment and compensation and engagement. We've not raised the pay for our adjunct instructors in several years. So we're doing a study right now to see what are some of the best practices and develop a better pay rate so that as we do our budget next spring, we can begin improving that for our adjuncts, which obviously are very important to a community college. Complete a new employee compensation plan. We haven't done this in a number of years. It costs about $50,000 to have a consultant come in and go through all of our employees and the files and give us a new plan for how we can approach their salaries so we can each year build that into our budget and keep them moving along in an appropriate way so we can be competitive with all other schools to make sure that when we do hire new faculty and staff, we're getting the best that are out there. Implement initiatives to address support staff. And every year we do an employee engagement survey. I don't think many other colleges do that. And it gives us all kinds of feedback on what the experience is of our employees. Well, even though our numbers generally had gone up, we're finding some issues that related to our support staff that we need to pay attention to. So we put together a focus group of support staff members, and we come up with a number of initiatives. And we've already been doing a lot of work on those, so that's been a very strong focal point for us. Implement a professional development series. We do this kind of haphazardly, but there is a group of faculty and staff that right now are working on a professional development series for them, where every month we've got different speakers and presenters coming in talking about topics that are very important to help them train. And as part of that, there'll be a series that's specifically for supervisors so that we can help them enhance their skills in working with our support staff. So that's part of the whole thing. All right, facilities development, I mentioned some of these things. We are working on the architectural design for the new health and science building. Hopefully we'll have a groundbreaking before the end of the fiscal year in June. Achieve funding for a new McMinn County Higher Education Center. I mentioned that THEC is having their meeting right now. Part of what they're talking about is performance funding for colleges for the next year. But the other thing that they're doing is they're recommending capital funds for the coming year. THEC fields all the proposals from TBR schools, UT schools, and also the 6 locally governed universities that are out there. And they all put in dozens and dozens of requests. And so they recommend a small number that goes to the governor and the finance committee to go into the next year's budget. That's how we achieved the $25 million this past year. The staff at THEC has recommended to their full commission, which is meeting today, that they're recommending 9 capital projects, capital outlay projects for this coming year. And Cleveland State is number 2 again on there. It is a collaborative effort. It's not just Cleveland State. I say it because I work here, not somewhere else, but it's the TCAT Athens, so Tennessee College of Applied Technology Athens, in collaboration with Cleveland State and in collaboration with UT Ag Extension would all be part of this new facility. The nice thing for Cleveland State is that we move out of the old facility where we're paying about $150,000 a year in rent, which I'd rather spend on you guys, to a new facility where we don't pay rent. It'll be larger than what we currently have. It'll provide space for more full-time faculty, which will allow us to develop more programs that students can complete at the Athens Center. And that's very much a big part of our strategic plan, because by doing that, we can provide more opportunities, particularly to students that live more in the northern part of our service area. So imagine Athens relating to not only Mid-County, but Monroe County, where they frankly can go quicker to Pellissippi State in Blount County, or sometimes to Roane State. We want to keep them here at Cleveland State, and also very accessible to Meigs County as well. So we should find out later this afternoon that they approve that list. And with it number 2 on the list going to the governor, I'd be really surprised if that came off the list. So it's very possible that Cleveland State could have 2 capital projects in 2 years, which is kind of unheard of. But if you think about the fact that we haven't had a new building since 1974, we're just kind of catching up. So very, very exciting. We'll make sure the campus knows what's going on there. Complete construction of a new college entrance, I mentioned that. And also a loop road. They're bidding this out right now, but this is capital maintenance money. Again, the money we get every year, we usually get 1 or 2 projects that are funded. And so the loop road was funded this past July, another $1.5 million. And you know how you drive in by this building and up by technology, and you take a turn, and you eventually can get your way back to the student center, and then it stops. The loop road will now continue all the way behind the humanities building, out behind the gym, and come back out to Atkinson Road, so we have better traffic around campus. There'll be additional parking attached to that road. And so we're about ready to mess things up around here pretty good. The area in front of Atkinson Hall will be closed when that starts, but that might not be till January. And then when we do the loop road, we'll do 1 half at a time. So we could do the new part that comes in behind the gym and get to the student center, so that we always have access back there, and then we'll do the other part after that. So another exciting project coming up. Relevant academic programs, that's always important to students. And so one was to implement the 4-day teaching schedule with a focus on blocks and learning communities. And I've been casually talking to a lot of students individually, getting their feedback, but we are going to assess this to kind of see what the reaction is of students, not only in terms of satisfaction, but how it implements your schedule, how convenient it is, to what degree it does help you engage with other students and faculty members. And so we will be asking you for your feedback on that schedule, but the theory is good. We've got to make sure that the practice is doing what the theory is. And then create a 5-year plan for academic programs. I mentioned that. Well, that's next. Enrollment management plan. We always got to pay attention to enrollment management. So Dr. Stokes could probably describe this better than me, but we are implementing right now a model that takes what we were calling student success coaching to the nth degree, to a model that really will impact every student that comes to the college. And here's the best way I can explain it, is that shortly after you apply, you are assigned a success coach. And that success coach will be your one-stop person. The buzzword in the past was a one-stop shop, where we had all these different offices kind of working together. We're going to train about 8 people to be one-stop persons, so that when you apply, you will get assigned one person who will help you with everything in terms of your application process. They will be knowledgeable about financial aid. You won't have to go to anybody else. They'll help you through the orientation process. They'll help you with the advising process, and they will be your academic advisor in your first year. Pure continuity. Sound good? I see one applause. some smiles. We think that's terribly important. Now, I'll be perfectly candid. We didn't invent this program. We're stealing it from our own state, who has worked on it for several years and got it to the point that it's being very effective and really becoming the model that I think for most community colleges. So we have met with them numerous times, and we have hired all but 2 of our positions right now. We need to hire 2 more for the start of the school year. So students that are applying for the fall of 2019 are being assigned these success coaches. And particularly in the second semester, they'll become engaged, and that process will start. So you're probably thinking, what happens to our current advisors? Was that your question, Amanda? No. Those of you that are here now will and come back, well, you'll continue with your current advisor. So only the new students starting for fall of 19 will have this new start, and then it's kind of a handoff towards the end of the first year. So faculty members, their job will be more focused on second-year students, roughly. Everybody's kind of a different spot in terms of where they stand with credits. The idea is that the success coach takes you through the first 24 hours. Then you pass off to a faculty advisor who can then focus on career-oriented kinds of things. So if you're a degree transfer student, they can really help you focus in on making that transfer successful. If you're in a program that gets you right into the job market, they're really helping you find a job. And again, that helps with their performance outcome things. So there'll be a lot more information coming out. I think Dr. Stokes, we probably, in addition to working with faculty and staff, need to make sure that we get students as informed as possible. But for you, those of you that are here right now, things won't change. That kind of makes sense? Good question. Engage the first cohort of Tennessee Valley early college students. We've already started that. If you notice, the room we stole in the Student Center is kind of a new lounge for our early college students. This is our first cohort. They're all from Cleveland High School. They started 2 years ago when they were freshmen in high school. I've been taking dual credit classes. Got representation right here. Well, I think about it. I really need a picture of your outfit from Oktoberfest. Can you get me one? Did anybody take a picture of your group? I'm serious. I really get a picture because I want to share it with folks at your high school. So you did great. We're so happy that you participated. And so I'm talking to the choir right here, but the program will allow them to complete an associate's degree actually before they walk across the stage for their high school diploma. And they'll have 2 years saved on top of everybody, and they can transfer in as a junior at a university or do whatever they want to do. So they're not really guinea pigs. They're the first ones who get the opportunity to do this exciting thing. And so we'll see. There's 2 more classes behind them. Yes, sir. The current success coaches? Well, the current success coaches will be part of that group of 8. So we're just really growing that and expanding that. And they go through 3 months of training to do the job that they're going to do because it's so all-inclusive. We want to make sure that they're the expert on all these things, and financial aid is a very tough thing to grab a hold of. They go through that kind of training. All of them will go through that kind of training. All right, early college. You guys doing great. I think we had 16, all women. The guys weren't smart enough to do it. Expand early college to additional schools. So we were in talks with McMinn County Schools and trying to develop that program. We're also talking to McMinn County Schools about that. We hope to see them come on board in the next 1 or 2 years. Engage first class attendance at Reconnect. We know that's going on. Our enrollment of adult students, and for comparison purposes, we use 25 and above. We're all adults, right? Regardless of age. But that's how they compare it from school to school. We increased our enrollment of students of that age by 22.5% this year because of Reconnect. It's working. They were half of our enrollment growth this year. And so adult students, they have special needs. We want to make sure that we attend to that. But our data also shows that over our history, adult students have a much higher retention and completion rate just because they have more life experience and they tend to finish what they start. So we want more adults as much as we can. Yes? So a questionnaire to kind of find out from adults what kind of services and support they need. Okay, so there is an adult student organization. Sounds like they're working on something like that. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure Amanda would love to jump in there with you on that. So good question. So, and also increase overall enrollment next year by 2%. And we think that's possible to have continual years of improvement, even though the economy is continuing to go strong because of a lot of the new programs and activities that we're doing, including the Success Coach program. We think that'll be instrumental in getting more students who apply to actually enroll. So that should be part of it. Strengthen financial condition, increase funding. It looks like we've achieved that for the next year based upon the preliminary numbers, balanced budget, adding to reserves. We're doing that. In our foundation is a separate nonprofit organization, and they hold funds that provide scholarships and other college support. There's over $12 million that they have available to them, and really great folks. So we're just about finished on a search for a new executive director. We'll probably announce that next week. They have been working very hard already this year on improving the governance of that organization. They've gone back to bylaws and charter and trying to make sure that they're functioning in the most effective ways, and implement a strategy and comprehensive annual campaign. So that's part of the fundraising effort of the college, and provide adequate staffing for grants. It kind of makes sense that you put some money up front into getting grants to the college. You can bring in millions of dollars a year to the institution if you put the time and attention into doing that. And even though all of our faculty and others have roles to play there, having a point person who can go out and find those grants and help write those grants can bring a lot more money to the college. So we're looking at that as well. So, and then this one on planning, I mentioned SACS already, the 3-year review, the Community First Plan we're going to do this year to make sure we finish the 5-year of our strategic plan in the best way possible. Okay, I'm going to do this fairly quick, but these are called key performance indicators, and it might be hard to see, but this shows you the change of all these initiatives over the years. So if you look at students that started in 2010 and those that started in 2016, if you look at them as cohorts, the top line is students that earned 6+ credits in the first semester. We've gone from 46% to 66% during that period of time. The next one has earned 15+ college credits in the first year, from 34% to 47%. And then the red line is earned 24 college credits in the first year, went almost tripled from 11% to 30%, and the bottom line is earned 30+ college credits in the first year. It hasn't not grown quite as much, but these are all important to succeeding as college students and completing. And these are things that get compared from institution to institution. So completing more of these gateway courses, as we call them, is a great indicator of success. This one is kind of similar. If you look at how many completed English in the first year, it has improved, but not as much as others. But if you look at completed college math in year one, that has doubled since 2014, as well as completed both math and English in the first year. And a lot of that change is, well, a good part of that change is related to the co-requisite model of remediation. No longer do we have these separate remedial classes that don't provide you any credit. We do it as part of a credit class, and that's been a move that we've done across the state, and that has helped quite a bit. To me, this is the most important performance outcome possible. So the blue lines show you the changing enrollment, okay, over the last few years. It does not have a column yet for 18-19 when we got back almost as much as this, just a little under 3,300 students. And so we're seeing a rebound in enrollment, but this line right here, even though it doesn't relate to these numbers, shows you that over the same period of time, we have been increasing the number of students that are completing a degree or certificate. Declining enrollment, increasing number of graduates from the college. Now, I think you know that we're not just passing out degrees to more students and making it easy. This is a pretty rigorous program that we're providing here. So that tells us pretty strongly that we're doing a better job of working with students and helping them complete the programs that they started. In fact, this past year, if you look at all of the completions in terms of both associate degrees and certificates, we had over 1,000 students complete some kind of diploma or degree at the college. One of the top 3 years at Cleveland State in our history. And so we're seeing a lot of things trending in some very positive ways. All right, a lot of stuff here. I was talking about student engagement before with that national organization. One thing to look at right here is that here's Cleveland State 2016. We improved on all 5 of the major measures that they have here. This down here shows you that we compare Cleveland State to the TBR average and the national small college average. So 1, 2, 3, 4 categories, we surpass all the TBR schools on average and the national small college numbers. So active and collaborative learning, student effort, academic challenge, student-faculty interaction. Now, support for learners continues to increase, but we're still lagging behind that area. And I actually pulled out a handout before I left that could tell you what some of those things are. There's a number of questions that relate to that, but it has to do with supports that are both inside and outside the classroom, has to do with providing financial aid and all kinds of things. So we're taking a very hard look at student learners. We want to make sure that we're above the average on that as well as everybody else. But because of those results, we're getting calls from national organizations to come speak and talk about what we're doing at Cleveland State. They're writing us up in a number of papers to talk about the good things that are happening at Cleveland State. So we're not going to rest on our laurels. We want to make sure we keep improving. So this is kind of a wrap up. This was a slide I did with the Board of Regents when they were here, because I really do think that we are more than a glasses half full kind of place now. Might not have been that way in the past, but our cup is kind of running over. We want to make sure we keep refilling that cup, to use that metaphor. We're very focused on student success, and completion drives everything. That's the attitude that I think you find on campus. We are a workforce and economic driver in our region. That was a very top strategic goal for us. We are very goal-driven, and we do that everywhere from enrollment services to fundraising to anything that has to do with student outcomes. We need to make sure we do that effectively. We encourage innovation and celebrate our successes. I think that's a sign of any good organization, and we try to do that as often as we can. We strive to be a best workplace. We want to make sure our faculty and staff feel as strong and as positive about where they work, and that increases their commitment. I think we have that. But we always can do better. In fact, there's a national organization that gives out awards for best workplace. We're going to apply for that pretty soon. Pathways is not a project, it's our culture. Pathways really refers to each individual pathway that you have towards completing a degree and getting into a career. We want to make sure from application to graduation that we have not only have you focused on a career path, but we're providing you with all the support services that you need to graduate. We are worthy of a $25 million capital project and more, and I think we're going to see that happen in a meeting today, that more is coming in terms of state support. We are planning for the next 50 years. We just completed our 50th anniversary a couple years ago, but I think we are looking forward. We are planning for the future. We want to make sure that Cleveland State is a great place for students like you for the next 50 years. And we're determined to always put community first. And when I say community, when our strategic plan says community, students are first in that group, but it also has to do with our community partners, our business partners, manufacturing. Our mission is to serve the community, and you are number one in that group. So we believe that Cleveland State is quickly and strongly developing a growth mindset. So that was a lot of information thrown at you very quickly. We've had some questions, but I'm glad to answer any other questions you might have. Yes? What's going to start? Oh, on Atkinson Drive. Road projects are pretty complicated. You'd think they'd be pretty simple. The city puts in a certain amount of money, but they only do it when they get matched by the state. And so right now they're applying for that state match, and when they get it, they can initiate the project. They're shooting at 2020 as a target for getting Atkinson Drive completed. Other questions? Yes? Yeah, great question. I don't know if you heard her, but how are we going to split the success coaches in terms of who does what, basically? I hope you've come to understand that we have 7 career communities at the college. These are broad academic areas that everybody is a part of. I mean, one could be advanced technologies, one could be humanities. I'm not sure I have all the right terms memorized, but every student that comes into Cleveland State now goes into one of those career communities. So there'll be one person assigned to each of those 7 career communities, and there'll be one specifically for Athens. And the training will reflect, they'll be trained across the board, but they'll also be trained specifically on that career community. Good question. Others? All right, go ahead. Great questions. How specifically can leaders of student organizations help achieve those goals? One thing that comes to my mind is get more students involved. I appreciate the fact that you guys have all stepped up to be campus leaders, but we know not everybody does that. And it really does make a difference if you can reach out to your friends and say, hey, I'm really enjoying this experience, why don't you come join me? So I think the more that we get students engaged in those activities, the better. Also, if you've got ideas or suggestions for new student organizations that we currently don't have, we'd love to hear them. And so if there's even a small group of students that have an interest in a particular area and a need to work on a particular topic, then our staff will help you do that. So that's always available to us. So again, communicating with each other, hey, I'd really like to have a kayaking club. I'd join it. But you think about our natural resources, it kind of makes sense to either do kayaking or fishing or whatever it might be. We know these folks are doing that. Imagine if you have an interest in fishing, for example, and you've got 20 other folks at the college that want to form a club, and you can organize some activities around that. It could be really exciting and actually become competitive. Fishing and kayaking can become competitive as well. So number 1, get more folks involved. Number 2, recommend new organizations that we can start. Yes? Yeah, good question. Just to clarify, the success coaches will begin working, I mean, they're doing what they're doing with everybody right now, but they'll kind of transition probably by March to working solely with the students that are entering for the fall of 2019. And so those of you that are here right now will continue to work with your faculty advisors till you graduate. So it starts with the new students that start next fall, and then at the end of their first year, they'll transition with the academic advisors, the faculty members. Good questions. Yes, ma'am. Another good question. She's asking, how do you determine where you're going to spend your money for building projects and things of that nature? 2 years ago, we completed a campus master plan. And the state requires us to do this, but this is it's like a strategic plan for buildings and facilities. And it tells us what we want to do. It says when we want to do it and what the order is of that. And so it's very strategic to build the new building first, because once you do that and you move people from other places on campus to that new building, you can go renovate that space. And that's what we're doing with humanities. So when the new building is complete, folks from career education and the science building, some of them will move to the new building, and then we'll renovate the humanities building, and they'll have to move out temporarily to those spaces that are vacated so we can renovate that building, and then they'll move back. So it's a process of doing all these over time. So it goes back to our master plan that was approved by the state of Tennessee. Did that answer your question? Right. Well, she still wanted to know more about how we make those decisions. When we did our master plan, we did a very thorough demographic study that looked at careers and jobs that are needed in our region. And so and here's one that I've talked about quite a bit. If you look at the demographics in terms of jobs or careers that require an associate's degree, 6 out of the top 10 were in the healthcare field. So it makes good sense that if you're going to build a new building so you can grow programs and add students, you'd go to health sciences. If you're going to build a health science building, it makes sense to support that with the science programs, biology and chemistry as good examples, to be there in that new building and try to get the best impact out of the new facility. So that's how those, the health and the sciences came about. Excellent questions. Others? How tall? We're not quite sure yet. We think it'll be a 3-story building. That way it doesn't take up more of a footprint. So yes. I saw your hand go up. Or are you just stretching? Yes, all new buildings, frankly, are required to have elevators. That's the new code. And so absolutely. Now my hope is that we're going to do another additional campaign that the presidents are supposed to have visions. So I've got a vision on this one. From the new building across the street, there'll be a pedestrian bridge that'll come out of like the 2nd or 3rd floor and come right over to the level of the library and the administration building. That'll make it convenient. It'll make it handicap accessible to the best degree. And so we're working on identifying what the cost of that is and raising the money for that as well. Yeah. Questions about the library, and are we going to raise funds or do some renovation projects to enhance the function of the library? It is in the master plan. It is just an order of getting there. And so we're going to have some decisions to make in a couple of years about what's next on the process and what's the priority. We've developed what we call the Master Plan Implementation Advisory Team, really long name. But we use that to help guide some decisions on what's next, things of that nature. And so they've been very useful so far. So there is a group that we bring together that will help advise those next decisions. But the reality is we need to renovate every building on campus. It's a matter of what's next and making it happen. So we're going to have to keep going back to the state to get their money to make that happen. Now, I'm not betting we can do 3 in a row, but you never know. We're going to ask for sure, but over time we're going to get additional funding. We're also going to continue to work on fundraising, because if we raise, it costs about $5 million roughly to renovate a building. To do all the infrastructure, redo bathrooms, it's not a gutting of the building. You won't see humanities building looking totally different when it's done. There'll be some room changes to make some additional faculty offices. All the bathrooms will be redone, the heating and cooling and all those things to make sure that the building is structurally and functionally as good as possible, but it won't look terribly different. We might do some things aesthetically around the entrance, but if you're $5 million for a new building, theoretically you could go raise the $5 million, but we just did all we could to raise $3 million. So the relationship with the state, their funding, and our matching dollars is probably most reasonable for us. Did you have? There's no name on the library, so when you graduate, if you wanted to make that happen. Yeah, we're always looking for those naming donors. We still don't have a name for the new building. So once I have the drawings for the new building, we're going to go out and do another phase of fundraising to see who might want to put their name on it, and also naming for all the classrooms in there. One last question. I think we're about done. Yeah, when a new student is assigned a success coach, the intent is that you have that person all the way through your first year. And then I think it's really healthy to make the change at that point to a faculty advisor who's more focused on a career field, who can help you with the transfer. And so, yeah, you'd have them for the whole first year. All right, Amanda, you get the last question. Okay, 4-day class schedule. Yeah. Thank you, ladies. Okay. Good points, good question. And the new building, There are going to be some general classrooms in there. It won't be all nursing and science. So there'll be general classrooms that can be used. And we are planning a larger facility that, probably the best way to describe it, if you take H127 and you knock out the back wall and make it twice as big, it'll be about that size. That could be multifunctional for all kinds of things. So yeah, we're trying to be pretty mindful that as we make these improvements, that we do provide spaces for student interaction, club meetings, different kinds of events. We definitely want to do that. So that was the last question. I want to thank you for being here. If you have any questions after we're done, I'd be glad to chat with you about that. But I appreciate your leadership in Student Senate, your involvement as a student on our campus. You really make a difference to life that we have on campus. So thank you very much. Wave to the folks that might be watching online.